Thank you, listeners. You're joining us in time for the Elko County School News, our update with Elko County School Superintendent CJ Anderson. CJ, it's a pleasure to sit across from you and to get updated in our local school news today. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, awesome to be here. Thanks.
Absolutely. So there are probably any number of topics that we'll dive in on today, but I wanted to make sure that we talked about, if there's anything first on your agenda today. Is there anything or...
Yeah, I got a few things.
All right. I was going to
we could discuss.
You usually do. I was looking over, and I hadn't had a chance to talk to you. The Interim Finance Committee authorized money for Humboldt County School District. I thought that was really interesting, but not something that we can get into unless you want to, obviously.
Oh, I'd be happy to comment on that if you'd like. So that is money that is, it's from the $250 million that the state appropriated as part of SB 231. And that is, so every district has essentially a portion, kind of a proportional amount of that $250 million that we can apply for, and that can go to increasing employee salaries. And so Humboldt is the first district to make that request, and that just happened. I want to say it was yesterday or the day before.
Yeah, Wednesday.
Yeah, okay, yeah, that was just yesterday. I was seeing some email chatter about it, and so they're the first ones to go for it. So we do intend on having our little, our portion that we ask for. There's a lot of kind of requirements and stipulations in order to qualify for it. The school district already has to have a certain amount set aside for raises already. Like essentially, it's a bill that's rewarding school districts for increasing compensation for their employees. And so the reason, if anyone's wondering, well, how come we haven't done it yet? You're not eligible to do this until your raises are, like your own in-house raises are already established and done and worked through. And so Humboldt County was already in a position where they had completed their negotiations with all of their bargaining units. And so they were able to then, so once that's finalized, then they've made that official on their end, then they can in turn go request the SB 231 money as kind of an after action. So we are still in negotiations with our units, and so but this is all part of the picture. We've made sure that we are doing enough. I'm trying to think of how to say this because I have to be legally. I can't talk about what's going on in negotiations, but I can say that we're making sure to do enough within our own negotiations to make sure we are eligible for the full amount that we can be eligible for proportionally from the state. So, but in the end, none of that can happen until we come to agreements with our current unions. So, yeah, that's kind of where we are.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate you being able to talk about it. Again, sort of on the fly. I just noticed this report online with the Nevada Independent. They just do a stellar job on a lot of these state issues. And this does put, additional money into the pockets of the teachers, and the other employees. And Superintendent Dave Jensen, who I know is a colleague of yours with the Humboldt County School District, he said that with the funds, the district will provide a 3.2% pay increase for 420 certified and classified employees for the school year, and a 4.8% increase over the next school year, and that could be adjusted depending on staff turnover. And I think overall, the figure I was looking at, it does affect their budget. I should have had that amount highlighted there, but it's not an insignificant amount, and people need to appreciate that, right, CJ? I mean, you're balancing the budget, but at the same time recognizing that teachers and staff have foregone raises, as have administrators, because you don't get a pay raise in this. This isn't something that you're eligible for. Right.
Yeah. There's lots of kind of nuances and elements to this SB 231 equation that are problematic. First and foremost among those being that while it is nice to have money from the state for the purpose of giving additional raises, a very significant element of this is that there is no indication or promise of this going beyond this biennium. And so how do we incorporate this to where we're able to make use of the funds that are being made available, making them part of salary, but also implement language that makes it so that if it doesn't continue to come from the state, that we're not stuck holding, being obligated now to have, because salaries are those just go on for forever. And so making sure that there are ways to, we hope the state will continue to, let's just say at the next biennium, they say, hey, we're doing it again, and we're doing it again. And that would be amazing if they just do that into perpetuity. But we can't just depend on that being the case. And so trying to be fiscally responsible there, but also not leaving money on the table that can go towards our educators who so greatly deserve to have their pay increase. And so, so as you alluded to, this bill was very specific in who is eligible to have salaries increased from this money. And yes, administrators are not included in that mix. Central office, some central office people are not included in that mix. And so then we have to, as a school board and as leadership, have to decide, well, do we say too bad, so sad for those people, or do we try to, from an equity standpoint, say, well, I guess we need to figure out a way out of our own budget to make sure that everyone is, treated well. And so, those are all elements of the equation that we have to figure out. I know that, from my understanding is Humboldt initially intended on, using their budget to equally, or proportionally compensate their administrators, but had budget concerns with that and ultimately decided they were unable to do that. And so, then you have to worry about, does that upset certain employee groups and make certain ones feel more valued than others? And so it's always a delicate balance on how you manage your finances, being responsible while also showing appreciation and recognizing the contributions that each of our very important employee groups provide in order to make sure our schools function effectively. We can't do it without all of them. And so how do you make sure to do that? It's a big equation, and a lot of us work on it together. And we're, even though we're not at that point yet because we haven't finished our initial negotiations, we are very cognizant of the impacts that this has, and then how we're going to manage that moving forward. So we're looking into it, making preparations for it. And Humboldt was very kind to be the first one to go, and a little bit of a guinea pig thing, because we hadn't experienced yet what that's going to look like going to the IFC. Is the model that he was using, is that going to be acceptable to them, that sort of thing. So since it went well, we now have a good idea of a formula or an approach that is acceptable, because there were question marks around it. And Dr. Jensen is I think his background is in finance, and so he felt comfortable being kind of the guinea pig, so to speak, and delving into it and figuring out all the nuance. And so it seems like we have a good, at least, roadmap for a path forward once we get to that point.
Oh, that's terrific. CJ Anderson, our Elko County School Superintendent. And I am, again, referencing the Nevada Independent article. Go online, reference it if you need some details. It really does have a lot of great information. But just as what you said during that meeting, the Senate Majority Leader, Nicole Cannizzaro, who's of Vegas, said she was glad to see the Humboldt County School District didn't have any complications with using the fund, because that's obviously not the case, Clark County School District. So they're in a real mess there. So rural schools seem to have a clear picture and a better path forward. So that's something, I guess, to be grateful for, that we live in rural Nevada, CJ. So, yeah,
absolutely.
So, and I did want to mention, I found obviously the bottom line, the financial impact on this is $2.6 million for the Humboldt County School District. And as CJ mentioned, it's soft money. It's not guaranteed. It's not written into legislation. It is, simply put, often politically motivated. So it's something we all have to keep an eye on. So.
Yep.
All right. So with that part of our discussion underway today, did you want to talk about bids for the science lab? Have those come in? How is that working out with the project on Spring Creek?
Sure, I can talk about it a little bit. Maybe just like very superficially. The bids did come in. They were significantly higher than we anticipated they would be. So that is an agenda item for this upcoming meeting on Tuesday of next week, our board meeting at 5:30 here in Elko. And I imagine that will be one of the probably the most significant topic that gets talked about at our board meeting, and probably will take some time and consideration because just as a quick little background, because this has been going on for a good year and a half, we've been discussing this project, and it's something that a lot of our community members and a lot of our board members cared deeply about, was this project, but our board members also very much care about making good financial decisions, and so they're going to have to weigh the pros and the cons of moving forward with this project versus having it come significantly over budget, and whether that's enough reason to do something different and pull back, or if it's full steam ahead. Just it's up to them, and so I'm sure they'll have a lot of questions for our facilities department, and we'll do our best to help give them the information that they need to make the best decision that they feel they need to make as a board. So,
and CJ, just anybody who's bothered to do any research on this, it's not just of importance to the students and the faculty. It's CTE. This campus expansion would also open up additional classrooms on the Spring Creek campus. This is something that Elko went through not long ago. They did get a new science building in addition to Performing Arts Center. So, rather than turn it into something that's sensitive, just acknowledging the fact that construction costs have gone up exponentially. Every single place, every single entity is facing this, whether you're a private person trying to build a home or expand your business. This is a reality, and it's it's something that, as you said, the school board of trustees will have to decide what's in the best interest. But I guess the reality is the need isn't going to go away either. And it's not just one special interest or project. This, again, the Spring Creek campus hasn't had any new project for at least 20-something years, I guess, since it was built.
Yeah, and it's worth reminding people, too, that the Spring Creek student enrollment is actually increased. They have I think their freshman class this year is rather large, and it's my understanding that the next incoming 1 or 2 grade levels from the middle school are going to continue to be large, and Spring Creek is anticipating to be at or near 1,000 students in enrollment, which is it's a big number for them, and quite a change. And so you're right, the need won't go away, even if the decision is made to not move forward. It doesn't change the problem of not having enough classroom space there. And so, maybe it turns into a conversation of, okay, well, what's another solution then for that? And definitely going to have to be part of the conversation, and always, not at the back, but the forefront of this conversation is here we are parsing over, $1 million in difference. And if we had a consistent and, appropriate amount of capital funding source coming from our county, then this really wouldn't be as big of a concern. But the concern is obviously that we don't currently have an incoming capital improvement funding source. Therefore, we have to be super cautious with what remains until, and hypothetically there is something coming soon, but we don't know what the amount of that is. And so it's tough to make long-term decisions without concrete information on what the impact is going to be of those long-term decisions. So it's again, like so many of the decisions we have to make, especially when they are in 7 or 8 figure numbers, you got to be super sure about what you're doing and what kind of impact that's going to have. not to mention, and this is just one project we're talking about. There are needs, as we saw from our facilities report from last year, that there are great needs all around our district, and so.
And it's a huge district. I mean, stretching from, Jackpot to West Wendover, Carlin schools, not just Spring Creek, which again is showing significant growth. So it does require careful planning. And that's something too, I think the Board of Trustees is ready to defend, that this has been part of the planning and it does expand and allow for the growth needed for Spring Creek campus. It's just one more project. So the school district's been carefully looking at. So that'll be on the agenda for the Tuesday regular School Board of Trustees meeting. You can view it online or you can be there in person.
Yes.
All right.
And obviously anyone who has feedback or input one way or another on that, whether you're in favor of the project or against the project, we welcome all perspectives and viewpoints. Can have your public comment to help give those elements and factors to the board for their consideration.
Well, it is a privilege to have the school superintendent in studio with us as we have our monthly conversation with CJ Anderson. Just a reminder that, while he's, steering the desires and the wishes of the Elko County School Board, certainly it's not central office driving these decisions. The School Board of Trustees is accountable, and literally the buck stops with them. So that's why we may have the superintendent on the radio, but he is simply carrying out the wishes of the elected officials who are in charge of the stewardship of the schools. Also, I think you alluded to it, CJ, and SB19. That's the legislation that enables the Rural Schools Fund, and in particular was directed toward building a new Owyhee school. Did you want to bring us up to date on that one?
Sure. There's not a whole lot to update on. We have made a request for, or we're working on making the request for funds. I think we were informed that we're able to make an initial request of half of that money. So that would be $32.25 million, I guess, that we can make a request for to get in the bank so we can start to take action on finalizing design and that sort of thing. So that's the phase we're at there. And then other actions that our board has taken that are relevant to this are, we did have Dr. Josh Byers, one of our board trustees, be appointed as the Board of Trustee member on the AB 519 oversight panel that our county officials put together. And then our board also appointed Jennifer Roberson as a community member with knowledge and experience in the construction of school facilities. And so she was appointed at our last meeting in Wendover. So we've done our part to make those two appointments of the 5-person oversight panel. And it is my understanding that as soon as we receive any money related to AB 519, then the oversight panel must then begin to meet on a quarterly basis to review those transactions and the direction those projects are going into. Again, this is a panel that is a review and recommend type panel, and so we will just make sure to be very transparent and clear on what we're doing with first the Owyhee project, and then of course once a tax rate is committed, then any projects that are funded as a result of that tax rate.
And that's an important distinction. That has to do with only the Rural Schools State Fund. The School Board of Trustees is still deciding how any local capital funds are being used and what projects are decided to proceed with.
Yeah. So the oversight panel is very specifically to look at funds that come from this additional tax rate or any funding associated with AB 519. So whether that's this money for the Owyhee project or money from the tax rate or money from the tax rate that we apply to the matching fund from the rural account. So it's all of that. It wouldn't necessarily apply to, other, projects that are solely funded from other sources. Those are determined elsewhere and not really relevant this topic.
All right. So then the other committee members, Jeff Sander, a former superintendent, will be on the committee, but that's coming from the county side?
Yeah, that would be a county appointment for the I guess it would be a county member who has experience in financing of school capital improvement projects. So Jeff is obviously very qualified to speak on that matter.
Okay. And obviously I don't know if that's anything you wanted to call. I mean, he was, I don't know whether
Jeff's
he wasn't, yeah, he would certainly bring so much depth of knowledge and experience to that. So,
yeah, absolutely.
And I think he cares a great deal about schools.
It'd be tough to find a better, more qualified person to speak about financing of school projects than Jeff. He's well respected around the entire state. I was, as recently as last week, I was talking with a superintendent who I know multiple other districts contract him to work, as a private.
He's a consultant.
Yeah, consultant. Thank you.
Yeah.
As a consultant for those districts with finances and in all facets, not just capital improvement, but just like their general finances. And Jeff is a financial wizard, and so why wouldn't you want someone of that caliber?
Well, thanks, CJ. And just for listeners' benefit, our superintendent, CJ Anderson, was a principal at Wells High School. And so obviously Jeff was your boss for a certain period of time, right?
Well, Jeff wasn't the superintendent when I was in Wells.
Oh, so
that was Todd Pearson.
You didn't, sorry, Todd. Nope. It didn't overlap at that point. Okay.
But I did get to interact with Jeff during the time he was interim briefly.
Okay. Oh, that's right. Interim. He came back on the job. Okay. So with that in mind, again, we're also waiting for an appointment of a tribal member to the oversight panel. And that's something, is that the trustees or is that something the county will be doing?
I think the county handles that appointment.
So you have all of your appointees named to your panel. Mm-hmm. School districts got their ducks in a row. Ready to go. One more question. Well, the $32 million that you get once the state signs over the money, do you get to realize the interest accrued on the account? Does that help, or?
Yes, it could help. There's I don't want to put my foot in my mouth about what we can or can't do with that. What I will say is this: as we see with the Spring Creek project. We are prepared for the reality that in order to realize the original project we thought we would be doing, it's probably going to come in at a higher price point than originally anticipated. And so, we don't want to put the cart before the horse, so to speak, and think, hey, there's going to be, potential for gaining interest for something else, because there's a real likelihood that, every penny of this and more is going to be needed in order to put together a brand new school. The cost per square foot is astronomical at this point for construction purposes. And so, you want to do this project right. And so, I think that if there is any sort of interest to be gained, that sort of thing, we're probably going to need it, in the end, as costs continue to go higher and higher, especially if this is a 3-year project, and cost of materials will probably and labor will only continue to increase over that time. So
right, and
being
you're
real cautious.
Literally going to have to set up sort of a temporary village of construction workers, and because it's a geographically isolated area, that's just the reality. So I would adds imagine. To the cost.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So just a number of things to keep in mind. Good picks again with Dr. Josh Byers, school board trustee, and then Jennifer Roberson, very talented professional, and she's chair of the Terrace at Ruby View, the senior board of directors, senior citizens governing board of directors. So those are really good choices. Obviously, I'm sure the public will be pleased with the outcome. Yeah. And then one other thing, I guess, on the topic, if people are interested in sort of steering or urging the conversation about how much of the tax to direct to the school district, they should reach out to their county commissioners, CJ, because that's going to be their decision of how much the tax rate goes. Yes,
yeah. So we're hoping. So the county commission has the option to dedicate anywhere from 1 to 25 cents of tax rate to the school district through this bill. We very much would appreciate the entirety of the 25 cent option, not only because it we're in desperate need of working on school-related projects, but there's the added element of if we're able to apply that towards getting a match from the state, then the more we're able to dedicate on our end, the greater the match. And so it's it makes the most use out of whatever funds exist. And so, but recognizing that people have different opinions, and so I think the absolutely appropriate people to talk to would be the county commissioners, and as it's whether it's just an individual communication from a citizen to a county commissioner voicing their opinion, or when they have county commission meetings, obviously public input I'm sure would be welcome, and yeah, that should all be directed towards them.
And is there a deadline
for
when they decide of the tax rate?
It has to be in place by June 30th of 2024. So if the way the bill reads is the county commission must have that tax rate decided upon and go into effect at that time. If they don't have anything decided upon, then it defaults to the full 25 cents.
Okay, so plenty more discussion on that. Lots of community conversations.
Yeah.
And again, not just from CJ Anderson, because this is a true community issue going forward.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, we talked about, I think, most of the things that were on my list, but I want to make sure we get to the topics you were hoping to bring today.
No, it's okay. I always come prepared with plenty to talk about, and
you do.
I don't have a hard time filling time with my words. I'll mention a couple things of interest, I suppose. So semi-recently, we at both board meetings, and I want to say here with you, maybe at our last one, we discussed the State Board of Ed and their
times,
trying
starting
to
times.
regulate
Yes.
high school start times. And I think when we talked, the proposed regulation language was talking about all schools. They've since amended that to specify to high schools. But again, as a recap, the State Board of Education is pushing in a direction to regulate that all high schools in the state of Nevada start no earlier than 8 o'clock. And so in our district, that translates to a conflict for Elko High School and Spring Creek High School. Our other 5 in-person high schools all start at 8, so wouldn't be a change for them, but it would be for our 2 biggest, our most populous communities. And so it's a multi-phase process. It's not something that happens quickly, but one thing I want to give kudos to not only people around the state, but to our community specifically, because at the last State Board of Ed meeting, I want to say it was last Wednesday, so not yesterday, but the Wednesday before, they had roughly 3 hours of public comment on this topic, and we had multiple students from Elko County who commented, and I can't remember if it was written comment or verbal, but they helped contribute to the conversation. And I don't have a for sure breakdown of it, but anecdotally, what I heard was that 90+% of the public comment that was provided for that State Board of Ed meeting was against the State Board of Ed regulating that for the state, and a few comments in favor of it. That being the case, despite the overwhelming majority of people speaking out against such a move, the members of the state board still went forward with the next phase, which is to bring that language to the Legislative Council Bureau to work on regulation language, and there will be further opportunity for public comment again. But just it was a little disappointing to hear that despite the overwhelming majority being against it. And from our understanding at the last meeting prior to that one was they wanted to hear from parents, kids, communities. They didn't super want to hear from superintendents and school administrators anymore. So they did hear from students and families, and still, I'm not going to say disregarded it, but despite the fact that it was not in favor, they are moving in that direction anyway. So we'll continue to keep the community updated and the school board updated. And I was really, just from a point of pride, it was good to see people voicing their opinions and making sure their voices are heard, and want to encourage people to continue to do that. Sometimes people get discouraged and say, "Oh, well, what's the point? I spoke to my legislator, I spoke to the state board. They'll say they ignored me, and just because people disagree doesn't mean you were ignored. It means that they could have an agenda or something of their own that they feel like is important, and recognizing that they're hearing from other constituents in other ways, even if it wasn't at that meeting. So trying to give the most generous interpretation of what's going on, but just a kudos to the people in our community for caring enough to speak up about it, and we're going to have other opportunities and need to do that in the future. So we'll make sure to keep you updated on that.
Well, thank you. Yeah, definitely. As you mentioned, they may have kicked the can down the road a bit when they turn it over to LCB, but I think they also added another year to the timeline. So the soonest it could be implemented is something like 2026 from what I read, but it's still, it does make a difference when you offer your testimony, because as you said, it could take time.
Yep.
I mean, we saw this happen recently with the Boys and Girls Clubs project with the baseball field, and I know that was very divisive in the community. And with their recent decision not to use those ball fields, I guess, CJ, that begs the question: does Elko High School plan to continue to use baseball fields for their practices and everything?
I believe so.
Yeah, mm-hmm. So that's probably good news for the teams, then the athletes and the.
Yeah, I'm sure they're happy with the decision. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but the school district doesn't have any plans to pick up the fields or anything. No. So just leave them in that trust the way they are, I guess, owned by the city. And okay.
Yep.
It's open space. I think that they found out that it's not to be used for a different purpose. So that's what we understood from the meeting anyway, Tuesday.
Yeah, I think so.
All right. What else is on your list?
I'll just talk about one more. And so just... we're continuing to amplify our partnership with the Cook Center for Human.
Was that the Children's Mental Health?
No.
Okay.
I can never remember. It's a very lengthy name. I always call it the Cook Foundation. But anyway, these are the same folks that subsidized our ability to bring Alex Boyer to come speak to our staff and students.
Oh, I heard wonderful things
Cook Center
about
for
that.
Human Connection, I think that's what it's called. But anyway, they do a lot across the state and really the country. But they've got some partnerships with other school districts right now, and we are very excited about continuing to collaborate with them to make sure to offer behavioral and mental health support at Elko County School District, utilizing them. So we have a new section of our website that has been updated a bit. If you go under, and I think we're going to get this in multiple places, but if you go to our website right now, one of the rotating banners at the top references this, and you can click on that banner. It'll take you to the section of the webpage, or you can go under the Students tab, and that area is called, let me see, if you go to the Students tab, it's under ECSD Mental Health Resources. But when you go there, there's a link and this is going to get bigger as we continue this is going to be a topic at our board meeting as well. We're hoping to have a contract approved for a 1-year contract to bring resources to our parents and community. But there's a button on this page that says parentguidance.org, and immediately right now, everyone has access to some on-demand courses, and these are ones you just take them. There's still a lot of stigma that goes around mental health and parent guidance and that sort of thing, and so these are all, everything is anonymous. There's no data that tracks who's using what, and no one will know you did it. But if you go to this parentguidance.org, there are some courses you can take, and the courses are there's a lot to choose from. These on-demand courses range in topics from suicide prevention to digital use to video gaming addiction to conflict de-escalation with your teenager, to bullying, to depression and anxiety, to creating space where your teenager feels comfortable talking to you about their issues. To it's really meant. It's exactly what it sounds like. It's parentguidance.org. It's meant to help parents navigate what it's like to have children and teens in the 21st century. And so it's and this is all free. It's we collaborate with them, so we've got that linked through our website right now, and I think there's like 50 something on-demand courses that you can go through, and just pretty amazing that we have those available to us. And the contract that we have on our board agenda for this upcoming meeting is to bring more from them, and that would include a webinar series on, and they have 30-ish topics we can choose from. So we would pick the most relevant 6 or 7 during the course of the school year, and those would be not monthly, but maybe every other month type of thing. And again, webinars that you would tune into, but nobody knows you're attending it. It's just you can find that help without worrying about prying eyes or people being aware, because sometimes those things are very personal, and we don't want people knowing about a particular struggle, right? And so that would all be anonymous. And then another very valuable resource that would hopefully be part of this contract being approved is one-to-one parent coaching. And that would be for not only parents of kids in the community, but also, our staff. Everyone would be able to have one-to-one parent coaching with someone. It'd be virtual, but so you can get more specific help for your specific situation. And these are things that would just be such valuable resources to people. Get the help they need for their kids, for them as parents, and just have healthier students and healthier relationships with our students.
Oh, that's terrific. Thanks for the update on that. Parentsguidance.org. I did visit the website. It's linked to the Elko County ECSDNV.net. As you mentioned, 30 plus topics. That's a huge resource for any parent, any caregiver, just anyone who cares in general about how to better their communication and support skills in a really challenging time. So we appreciate your emphasis on that, and because it really is a foundation for everything. We talked about a lot of stuff today, and CJ, administration is handling all of this, staying on top of all of this. The teachers are literally in the trenches, and the students are doing their best, and parents are also, I'm sure, right around, that big supportive circle. Everybody's trying to do their best now. So,
and this fits right in with that 4th pillar of our strategic plan, which states that, our individual and collective health and wellness are essential to our success. And so we're our strategic plan, just as a reminder, is not a piece of paper or a file that sits in a folder somewhere. We deeply believe the things we settled upon in that strategic plan, and we've been actively taking action on those things and how we can help support people's individual and collective wellness. And this is just one more thing that we're doing to try to show that we mean business, and we're here to help, and just make sure everyone has what they need in order to be successful.
Well, thanks, CJ. School's an important social structure, at least in this community, it certainly is. So thank you for your leadership. Anything else for today?
Nah, I think we can wrap it up.
We got a lot. Please go to the website or visit your individual student, school, campus websites. Talk to their counselors, teachers. Talk to them about what's going on. There's all kinds of fun stuff for the spooky season. A lot of individual groups and agencies, organizations are doing things for the annular eclipse. Make sure you have your eye protection. We're going to be talking more about Dolly Parton's Imagination Library. That's something cool. There'll be a launch at the Elko County Library on Thursday, October 26th. Friday enrichment continues with lunch, and you can find updates to the bus routes too online, ecsdnv.net. CJ, thanks again for your time.
Yeah, thank you so much. Great to be here with you.
Thank you. And we thank Kayla Church, who's always hard at work behind the scenes to make sure all this information is available. Thank you, listeners, for joining us for Elko Live today here on KELK.